I was the guy everyone looked right through in high school. The one who spent his Friday nights debugging code while the popular crowd was out making memories. But I never imagined that my revenge would involve a sophisticated digital dragnet that left the most beautiful women in the city begging for mercy. I managed to turn the tables so completely that I went from being a ghost on dating apps to the puppet master of a scheme that cost three of the most entitled influencer types their reputations and their bank accounts. And now I have to ask you, was I a cold-blooded villain for exploiting their superficiality? Or was this just a long-overdue lesson in reality? I want you to really think about that as I tell you exactly how I built a digital empire of deception to scam the scammers who thought they could use guys like me as a human ATM. My name is Leo, and for most of my 24 years, I've been what you'd call a tech enthusiast, which is just a polite way of saying I'm a massive nerd who makes six figures writing security protocols, but can't get a girl to look at me twice in a coffee shop. I grew up with thick glasses and a stutter that only came out when I was nervous, which, let's be honest, was whenever a girl was within a 10-foot radius. By the time I hit my mid-20s, I had the career, the penthouse apartment, and the high-end car, but my dating life was a graveyard of left swipes and ghosted messages. I tried everything. I hired a professional photographer, I had a stylist pick out my clothes, and I spent hours crafting the perfect bio that balanced humor with success. It didn't matter. On apps like Tinder and Bumble, I was invisible. Meanwhile, I watched my coworkers, guys who were absolute jerks but happened to have jawlines sharp enough to cut glass, juggle dates every night of the week. But the breaking point didn't happen because I was lonely. It happened because I got played. Her name was Tiffany. She was a model, according to her bio, which mostly meant she posted pictures of her salads on Instagram for 50,000 followers. We matched, and I was over the moon. I took her to the most expensive steakhouse in the city, the kind where you have to book 3 weeks in advance. She didn't look at me once. She spent the entire night on her phone, taking photos of the wine list and the Wagyu beef, only pausing to ask me if I could help her out with a little financial emergency she had with her car. Being the naive idiot I was, I Venmo'd her $2,000 right there at the table. She kissed me on the cheek, said she had a headache, and I never heard from her again. She blocked me before the valet even brought my car around. That was the moment something snapped inside me. I realized that these women didn't see me as a person. They saw me as a glitch in the system, a bug to be exploited. So I decided to become the ultimate system failure. I spent the next 3 months building the mirror. It was a series of highly sophisticated, AI-driven dating profiles. I didn't just steal photos of random hot guys. I used deep learning software to create composite faces that were scientifically proven to be peak attractive to the demographic I was targeting. I created Sebastian, a billionaire venture capitalist who loved rescue dogs and private jets. Julian, a brooding international architect who lived between Milan and New York. And Jax, a high-octane professional athlete with a heart of gold. I didn't just give them faces. I gave them lives. I hacked into social media databases to create years of backdated posts, travel logs, and candid shots that made these men look more real than you or me. I wasn't just looking for matches. I was looking for the predators. I set my location to the wealthiest parts of the city and waited. Within 48 hours, I had thousands of matches. But I was picky. I looked for the girls who had Venmo in bio. The ones whose profiles were essentially shopping lists of what they expected a man to provide. I targeted the ones who had ghosted me, or guys like me in the past. I started with a girl named Chloe. She was a local socialite known for dating pro athletes and then exposing them for clout. Sebastian swiped right. Within 10 minutes, she was messaging him. Her tone a mix of desperation and forced playfulness. I used an AI chatbot I'd programmed with thousands of hours of successful dating transcripts to handle the small talk while I monitored the data. It was beautiful. She was hooked. She thought she'd found her golden ticket. I played the long game. I had Sebastian tell her he was currently in Dubai closing a massive tech merger, but that he wanted to send her a token of his affection. I sent her a link to a website I'd built, a high-end luxury boutique. I told her to pick out anything she wanted, up to $5,000, and just put it in the cart. When she did, the site asked for her shipping info and, for security purposes, a verification of her own credit card to confirm she was a real person before the gift was dispatched. It's a classic phishing move, but when you're blinded by the prospect of a $5,000 handbag from a billionaire, you don't check the URL carefully. She entered everything. I had her full name, her address, her CCV, and her social security number within seconds. But I didn't spend a dime of her money. Not yet. I wanted more. I wanted to see how deep the rabbit hole of greed went. I sent her fake shipping updates from a non-existent courier service, watching her check the fake tracking number every hour. She was so obsessed with the material gain that she didn't even notice the courier's logo was a slightly altered version of a middle finger emoji. I moved on to Julian. He matched with a girl named Mia, who was a notorious clout chaser I'd encountered before. Julian told her he was looking for a personal assistant to manage his properties in Europe. A job that paid $10,000 a month and required international travel. Mia was ready to quit her life the next day. I sent her contracts that were actually data mining scripts. I had her upload photos of her passport, her bank statements, to prove she could handle large transactions, and her private contact list. I was building a digital map of her entire existence. I felt a rush I'd never felt before. For the first time in my life, I was the one in control. I was the one being chased. I was the one who held the power to disappear or stay. I even had Mia record video introductions for the board of directors, which were just me testing my facial recognition software on her. She would sit there, hair perfectly done, smiling and promising she would be the most dedicated assistant Julian ever had, while I sat in my pajamas laughing at the sheer absurdity of it all. But I wasn't satisfied with just 2 targets. I scaled the operation. I used a high-performance server to host 50 different instances of the mirror. I was now interacting with hundreds of women simultaneously. I began to categorize them based on their tactics. There were the direct beggars who asked for cash within 5 messages, the professional victims, who always had a sob story about a broken phone or an unpaid bill, and the social climbers, who just wanted access to exclusive events. I studied them like a biologist studies bacteria. I noticed that the more I ignored them, the more aggressive they became. If Jax didn't reply to a message for 6 hours, the girls would send 10 more, each one more desperate and flattering than the last. It was a complete reversal of my real-life experience where a "hey, how's your day?" was usually met with a block. The data I was gathering was fascinating. I was seeing the dark underbelly of the influencer lifestyle. Many of these girls were broke, living in shared apartments while posting photos from hotel lobbies they weren't staying in. They were trapped in a cycle of pretending to be rich to attract rich men. And I was the one providing the ultimate bait. I started feeling a strange sense of detachment. These weren't people to me anymore. They were just lines of code in my database, variables in an equation of vanity. I began to push the boundaries of what they would do. I had Sebastian ask Chloe to sign a non-disclosure agreement just to see a photo of his new yacht. She signed it without reading a single word, even though the fine print said she was agreeing to donate her future earnings to a charity for underappreciated coders. I also started playing them against each other in real time. I orchestrated a leak, where a fake gossip account posted that a major billionaire was looking for a wife among the local influencer scene. I watched as they all started tagging my avatars in their posts, trying to get noticed. The competition became fierce. They started sending me tips about each other's pasts, trying to ruin their rivals' chances. Chloe told me Mia had a secret husband. Mia told me Chloe had fake followers. It was a race to the bottom, and I was the one holding the finish line tape. I realized that their entire world was built on a foundation of sand, and I was the one controlling the tide. I began to dive even deeper into their psychological profiles. I created Marcus, an art collector with a mysterious background who spoke in riddles. Marcus didn't offer money, he offered enlightenment and exclusivity. You'd be surprised how many of these girls were willing to spend their own money to impress a guy who acted like he didn't care about it. I watched them buy books on art history, tag themselves at museums they never visited, and try to reinvent their entire personalities just to be worthy of Marcus. It was a different kind of scam, a scam of the soul. I was forcing them to become better versions of themselves, but for all the wrong reasons. They weren't growing. They were just performing. By the 4th month, my apartment looked like a command center. I had 6 monitors running constantly, showing heat maps of dating app activity, scrapers pulling Instagram stories in real time, and chatbots engaging in complex emotional manipulation. I had automated the entire courtship process. My AI could now detect when a girl was cooling off and would automatically send a high-value trigger, like a photo of a private jet cabin with the caption, "Thinking of you." The response rate was 100%. I had effectively solved the dating equation for the top 1% of superficial profiles. I was the silent partner in hundreds of digital relationships, none of which were real. I even started a fake lifestyle magazine website called Eclat. I invited my targets to be featured in exclusive interviews. They were so hungry for the validation that they spent hours answering my AI's questions about their struggles to find a real connection in a shallow world. The irony was so thick I could barely breathe. Here they were, some of the most transactional people I'd ever met, complaining about the lack of depth in modern dating to a computer program I'd written to exploit them. I had recordings of them crying about how hard it was to be beautiful and misunderstood. It was pathetic, and yet I couldn't stop watching. I was addicted to the revelation of their hypocrisy. One evening, I watched Mia, the international assistant hopeful, spend 3 hours trying to learn basic Italian because Julian had mentioned he preferred his staff to be multilingual. She was on Duolingo, struggling through Il ragazzo mangia una mela, thinking it was her ticket to a villa in Lake Como. Part of me wanted to tell her to stop, that she was wasting her time. But then I remembered her bank statements I'd seen earlier. She'd spent thousands on followers and likes while her rent was 2 months overdue. She wasn't a victim. She was a gambler who had finally met a house that wouldn't let her win. I also began to notice the collateral damage. Some of the guys these girls were actually dating, the average boyfriends they kept in the background, were being discarded like trash. I saw breakup texts sent because Sebastian had messaged. I saw lives being appended for a ghost. It made me realize that the poison didn't just stay with the target. It seeped into everything they touched. It gave me a new perspective on the nice guy trope. It wasn't that we were nice, it was that we were playing a game with rules that the other side didn't even recognize. I decided that the only way to win was to set the board on fire. As the weeks turned into months, my digital footprint grew massive. I had integrated the AI with real-time news feeds so my avatars could talk about current events, making them even more believable. I even hired a few freelance voice actors from overseas to record short, vague voice notes like "Hey babe, just landed, talk soon," to add that extra layer of authenticity. The girls were completely submerged in the fantasy. I had created a digital drug, and they were the addicts. I was spending 16 hours a day fine-tuning the algorithms, watching the social dynamics play out on my dashboard. I felt like a god in a world of pixels. My real life started to fade away. I didn't care about the steakhouse or the fancy cars anymore. I only cared about the next ping on my server. I started to get bold. I had Sebastian tell Chloe he was investigating her friends to make sure they were up to his standards. She practically handed me their digital lives on a silver platter. I had passwords, private photos, and tax returns for half the influencer community in the city. I could have started a blackmail ring that would have made me a billionaire for real. But I didn't want the money. I wanted the look on their faces when they realized the person they were trying to use didn't exist. I wanted the sound of their world shattering. But then, something happened that made me realize I had to end the game. I saw a post from Tiffany. She was crying in a video, telling her followers that she had finally found the one, and that her life was finally going to be perfect. She was talking about Jax. For a split second, I felt a pang of guilt. But then I remembered the $2,000, the cold shoulder at the steakhouse, and the way she looked at her phone instead of my face. The guilt vanished, replaced by a cold, clinical resolve. She wasn't in love with Jax. She was in love with the idea of what Jax could give her. She was in love with the island, the brand, and the clout. I wasn't breaking a heart. I was popping a bubble. I decided the finale had to be spectacular. I didn't just want to expose them. I wanted to create a moment that would be etched into their memories forever. I spent weeks preparing the party. I hired a professional event planner through a series of untraceable emails, giving them a massive budget to set up the ballroom with the most high-tech equipment available. I wanted the transition from luxury party to digital prison to be instantaneous. I wanted the silence after the screens turned on to be deafening. I was orchestrating a symphony of humiliation, and every note had to be perfect. I even drafted legal documents that I would have them sign, just to add that extra layer of tech bro intimidation. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. I had enough data to ruin their lives, to drain their accounts, or to simply walk away with the ultimate ego boost. I was standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down at the people who had made me feel worthless for a decade. I looked at the folders on my desktop. Thousands of gigabytes of proof that the people we idolize online are often the most hollow among us. I had the power to be a silent observer or a vengeful judge. Before I tell you what happened next, and how the nerd finally delivered his final invoice, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have hit the delete button and moved on? Or would you have hit send on the ultimate revenge? Tell me the truth. Could you resist the urge to get even? I chose to hit send. But I didn't steal their money. That's a crime, and I'm too smart for a jail cell. No, I wanted a different kind of currency, their dignity. I orchestrated a grand reveal. I invited the top 5 girls, Chloe, Mia, Tiffany, yes, she matched with Jax, and 2 others, to a VIP pre-launch party for a new luxury club in the city. I told each of them they were the exclusive guest of their respective billionaire boyfriends. I sent private cars to pick them up, blacked out SUVs that I'd rented for the night. I had them arrive at a high-end hotel ballroom I'd rented for 1 hour under a shell company. They walked in, decked out in their best outfits, cameras out, ready to film their billionaire reveal for their followers. They were all wearing the gifts I'd promised. Cheap knockoffs they'd bought themselves to impress the men they thought were coming. They looked at each other with suspicion and jealousy, each one thinking she was the only one who belonged there. Instead of Sebastian, Julian, or Jax, they found a room filled with large television screens. When they were all inside, the doors locked. The screens flickered to life. It wasn't a party, it was a gallery. I displayed every single text message they'd sent, every disparaging remark they'd made about average men, and every bit of data they'd willingly surrendered to a stranger just because he was handsome and rich. I played the audio of Tiffany laughing about the Steakhouse loser she'd scammed. The look on her face when she heard her own voice echoed through the room was priceless. Her jaw literally dropped, and she clutched her fake designer bag as if it could save her. I showed the contracts Mia had signed that essentially gave my company the rights to use her likeness for promotional materials in perpetuity. I appeared on the central screen, my face blurred and my voice modulated. I told them that their boyfriends didn't exist. I told them that they were the product of a nerd's code. I explained how easy it was to manipulate them using the very superficiality they used to judge others. I told them that the cars they arrived in were already gone, and the bill for the ballroom, which was several $1,000s, was registered in their names using the credit card info they'd provided on my boutique site. They tried to leave, but the electronic locks were controlled by my laptop. For 60 minutes, they were forced to watch a montage of their own greed. I showed them the messages where they'd insulted their own fans, the photos they'd edited to look thinner, and the sheer volume of lies they'd told to keep the perfect image alive. I watched them crumble. Chloe tried to bribe the camera she thought was a person. Mia fell to her knees, crying about her career. It was a pathetic display of a lack of character. The panic in that room was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. They started screaming at each other, then at the screens. Tiffany was crying because she realized her influencer reputation was about to be nuked. Chloe was trying to call her lawyer, but I had installed a signal jammer in the room. They were completely isolated. I told them I wouldn't release the data to the public if they each signed a digital contract of humility. They had to post a public apology on their Instagram stories. Not to me specifically, but to every person they'd ever ghosted or used, stating that they had been humbled and would be taking a break from social media to find their souls. If they deleted the posts before 24 hours, or if they tried to sue, I would leak the unfiltered versions of their messages to every tabloid in the city. One by one they broke. They signed the digital documents on the tablets I had placed around the room. I watched their stories go live. The comments sections exploded. Their perfect lives were crumbling in real time. I felt no remorse. I felt like a surgeon cutting out a tumor. I had exposed the rot at the core of their digital existence. When the hour was up, the doors clicked open. They ran out of that ballroom like they were escaping a burning building. They didn't look back. They didn't talk to each other. They just disappeared into the night, their high heels clicking frantically on the marble floor. I stayed in the control room for a long time afterward, just listening to the silence of the empty ballroom. It was the first time in years I hadn't felt like I was being watched or judged. But I wasn't done. I had one more surprise. I had set up a script that would monitor their social media for the next year. If any of them tried to return to their old ways, the mirror would reactivate, and the leaks would begin. I had created a permanent digital leash. I watched Chloe try to post a vacation photo a month later, and within seconds, a comment appeared from an anonymous account with a screenshot of her pleading for Sebastian's attention. She deleted the post and hasn't been online since. I had effectively retired the most toxic players in the game. I felt like I had finally balanced the scales. The aftermath was a digital massacre. They all posted. Their followers were confused. Their perfect brands were shattered, and the power dynamic they had spent years building evaporated in a single afternoon. I watched from my penthouse as their follower counts plummeted. Tiffany actually reached out to my real profile a week later, not realizing it was me, asking for support during her hard time. She was desperate, looking for anyone with a bank account to cling to while her world burned. She sent me a message saying she always liked guys who were into tech. The audacity was almost impressive. I didn't even reply. I just deleted the app. I had realized that the revenge wasn't just about hurting them. It was about proving to myself that the game they play is a lie. I don't need their validation anymore, because I know exactly how easy it is to manufacture the very things they worship. I spent the following months cleaning up my digital footprint. I dismantled the servers, wiped the AI, and deleted the terabytes of data. I didn't want to be a puppet master forever. I wanted to be free. I started going out more, not to expensive places, but to real places, dive bars, local bookshops, hiking trails. I found that when you don't lead with your bank account or your job title, you attract people who actually want to know you. It was a novel concept. I met a girl named Sarah at a coding meetup. She didn't care about my car, and she definitely didn't have her Venmo in her bio. We spent our first date talking about the ethics of artificial intelligence, and she didn't look at her phone once. It was the most refreshing thing I'd ever experienced. I'm back to my code now, but I'm a different person. I don't hide my nerd side anymore. I wear it like armor. I've even started a new project, a real dating app that uses AI to detect and ban scammers and clout chasers before they can even send a message. I'm calling it TheTruth. It's designed to reward authenticity and penalize superficiality. It's my way of fixing the system I once broke. I've met a few people on there who are actually real. People who care about who I am, not what I can buy them. It turns out, when you stop trying to play the game, you find the people who were never playing in the first place. I also donated the $2,000 I lost to Tiffany to a charity that helps teach coding to underprivileged kids. It felt like the circle was finally closed. I've learned that the world of dating apps is a hall of mirrors, and if you're not careful, you'll lose yourself chasing a reflection that doesn't even exist. I spent years feeling less than because I didn't fit a mold, but in the end, I was the one who broke the mold entirely. Some might say I went too far, that I became the very thing I hated, but I see it as a public service. I showed them that the losers they ignore are often the ones who actually run the world. If you've ever been ghosted, ignored, or treated like you're invisible just because you don't look like a movie star, just remember that the person on the other side of that screen is often just as insecure and desperate as anyone else. They're just better at hiding it behind a filter. Life isn't a romantic comedy where the nerd gets the girl by being nice. Sometimes, the nerd has to burn down the house just to show everyone he knows where the matches are kept. I'm not saying you should do what I did, but I'm saying you should never let someone's perceived value make you feel like you have none. In the digital age, knowledge isn't just power, it's the ultimate equalizer. I've seen the perfection of the influencer world up close, and believe me, it's nothing but a well-coded illusion. Don't waste your time trying to hack your way into a world that doesn't value you. Build your own world instead. That's what I did. And honestly, the view from the top is much better when you know exactly how the mountain was built. I'm no longer the invisible guy in the coffee shop. I'm the guy who knows the secret behind the screens. I've realized that true power isn't about controlling others. It's about not letting others control how you feel about yourself. I'm happy now, truly happy, and I didn't need a single like or swipe to get here. Like this video if you were on my side and think these girls got exactly what they deserved. If you think I went a little too villain mode, hit that subscribe button and tell me why in the comments. I love a good debate. Don't forget to share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I'll be reading through them to see who's got the best nerd revenge story of their own. Have you ever turned the tables on someone who thought they could walk all over you? I want to hear about it. Your stories are what keep this channel going, and who knows, maybe your experience will be the next one I turn into a script. Thanks for listening to my side of things. I'll see you all in the next story.